people out there who support abortion or think it under certain circumstances should occur aren't fire-breathing haters. There's very good, moral men and women who believe from the depth of their being they're right.
Senator Joe Biden of Delaware is running for re-election this year. Like other politicians, he is running into trouble on the issue of abortion. It's the hottest controversy going.
Quite frankly, I'm a little offended when people say, well, I agree with you, Joe, and we're right, and the other people are wrong. They're immoral. They're not Christian. They're not good.
There is nothing more effective in pricking the conscience of the abortion clinic personnel or their clients than a person standing in prayer for them.
It isn't just politics as usual. It's politics infused with the passion of religion, with moral indignation. That's a highly combustible combination. It's turned the people who oppose abortions into crusaders and made the issue one of the most contentious since Vietnam. The ultimate target of the fight is here, the Supreme Court of the United States. In 1973, by a 7-2 vote, the court said that the right to privacy guaranteed by the 14th Amendment leaves to a woman the decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. The effect was to legalize abortion. There were more than 1 million abortions last year, and many people thought the fight was over. They didn't reckon with the tenacity of the opposition. The opponents of abortion are rallying. Their aim is to reverse the Supreme Court decision.
I just want to repeat my pledge that I made to my Pennsylvanians of last year, my support for a constitutional amendment to turn this country right side up again on abortion.
Support national right to life. Donation $1. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I want to welcome all of you again to Washington. Today, we're marching on the 5th anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision on abortion. It's a day that we don't like, but it's a day that we will properly commemorate by working and praying and singing and celebrating life and working to be sure that others can enjoy life. That's the reason for a little bell to ring, to toll for life.
Red roses, the flower of beauty, life, love. Now they've become a political symbol, adopted by the anti-abortion movement to signify the unborn. On this and every January 22nd since the Supreme Court decision, 5,000 red roses are shipped into Washington at dawn and delivered by the dozen to every senator and congressman by midday. The opponents of abortion have learned how to lobby. They know the power of symbols, of roses and language. They call themselves the pro-life movement. Their aim, they say, is a human life amendment to the Constitution that would outlaw abortion. To the symbols, they have added power. So far, 23 state legislatures, vigorously lobbied by anti-abortion groups, have petitioned Congress for such an amendment, and 11 states have actually called for a constitutional convention to settle the issue. And the pressure grows. By the thousands, they come to lobby the Congress, from as far away as South Dakota and upstate Vermont.
And groceries over there, too.
On chartered buses, mostly paid for by bake sales and church raffles. It's an impressive flexing of political muscle, and their legislators know it.
Thank God for each of you, and thank God for our great country where we have the right to assemble, such as you and I do today, to protest a Supreme Court decision. And hopefully someday we will have enough members of Congress who have the guts to pass a constitutional amendment to change that ruling.
To President Carter at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, I say, Mr. President, let's make the right to life the #1 human rights issue in 1978 and drive this evil from our shores.
And we also need to put aside partisan politics. This issue transcends Republicans or Democrats. And your support, your active willingness to come out on a day like this makes our success possible. Do you think that we would have won these votes in the House of Representatives or in the Senate if they weren't afraid of your political power? No, we wouldn't have. So with the grace of God, you keep the fear of God in every one of these darn politicians on the Hill until we gain the inevitable triumph, as we will.
Oh, this is not the right office.
You look around, I'm sure you recognize many people that you have seen in one or other capacity in this effort of these last 5 years to reverse the decision of the Supreme Court, to reverse the trend of things that we see going wrong. If we are really to be effective in our love for the unborn, we can only get at them through the born. We sincerely do hope that all of you are going to be able to be in the procession. But if you can't be there, do at least join us in spirit during the time. And think of it truly not as a march, but as a procession.
You know, we have a large pro-life group of congressmen and senators working for us in the halls of the United States Congress. We can, you know, have pro-life legislation. And we should be having pro-life legislation, and that's the purpose of today.
Madam Chairman, it's a pleasure for me as a United States Senator from Kentucky to be here this afternoon to present a national award for your Why I Am Pro-Life essay.
I think it's a tremendous idea of getting the young people involved, and I've seen them involved here today and elsewhere in Minnesota, my own state. The poster award to Susan Arnoldy, who's here with her mother. Susan is one of 10 children. Boy, that's pro-life. We've had more pro-life votes and bigger votes in this session of Congress than in any in history. But we need some help on the other side of the aisle over there, on the other side of the Capitol in the United States Senate. Amen. Because the Human Life Amendment is going to win. It has brought forth the greatest grassroots movement in the history of American politics.
No compromise. Those are tough words for this town, where some people will tell you that politics is the art of compromise. But then, nothing about the politics of abortion has ever been artful. The latest controversy is whether the government should pay for abortions. Congress has cut off public financing, except in cases of rape and incest, and where a pregnancy may cause severe and long-lasting physical health damage. So only under certain limited conditions can a poor woman pay for an abortion with federal funds. Yet, federal employees can get abortion on demand here under dozens of government-financed medical insurance programs. But the battle has moved now back to the states. To understand the politics of abortion, you have to go to your local high school or church basement.
I've got a letter from the governor. Dear DFLers, as your governor, I am happy to welcome you to your 1978 Democratic Farmer Labor Precinct Caucus. Tonight is the night when thousands of Minnesotans are gathering in neighborhood DFL meetings throughout the state.
8 p.m. in Columbia Heights, a middle-class suburb of Minneapolis. 39 men and women have come to the junior high school to help shape this year's political agenda. They call it Caucus Night, and any eligible voter can attend. Every 2 years, all over the state, thousands of ordinary citizens, Democrats and Republicans, gather in town meetings like this to make their voices heard. Much depends on what they say, for the caucuses are the first round in writing a party platform, selecting the party officers, and endorsing the candidates who will run for state and national office. Partisans for and against abortions know that one trail to the Supreme Court begins right here.
We support the 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decisions which guarantee reproductive freedom to women. We urge all branches of federal, state, and local governments to give the highest priority to complying with these Supreme Court decisions and to making available all methods of family planning to women unable to take advantage of private facilities. We oppose the exclusion of abortion or childbirth and pregnancy-related care from federal, state, or local funding of medical services or from privately financed medical services.
Mr. Chairman, fellow DFLers, I oppose that motion because of the clause about reproductive freedom. For 197 years, this country got along fine without abortion being legal. 7 men in the Supreme Court, 7 old men in the Supreme Court, decided that this country would have abortion as the law of the land and struck down all those laws in all the states. And I, for one, will go to the ends of the earth to stop reproductive freedom. I will give my very life just to save one of those little babies. And any of you that join in with me, please defeat that motion.
All in favor of adopting this resolution, please raise their right hand. Those opposed? It's carried.
By a vote of 23 to 12, the caucus passes the resolution supporting reproductive freedom, a woman's freedom to choose an abortion. The opponents of abortion have lost a skirmish, but they did elect 6 of their people as delegates to the county convention, and they know their cause will fare better this night at other caucuses. The fight is just beginning. What is your political goal here? What would you like to do politically in that party that you like and admire?
I would like to let the politicians and the people that represent our state know that there is a strong pro-life factor. And I really think that the overall state on a percentage basis is even higher than this, because we've had people living in this precinct that have been very, very, well, abortion, I don't know, I hate to use that word, but I mean, they've been abortion-oriented.
I think that you're going to find that pro-life has done very well in this state, and you'll be able to get the figures tomorrow.
Thank you, Bill. Let me hear from some of the women. All the men are doing all the talking.
The women do all the work.
Are you discouraged by your turnout tonight?
No, because I think that this particular caucus has always been pro-abortion on the past caucuses that I've attended. I didn't expect it to be much different than this.
What do you hope to accomplish by taking part politically in this process, you personally?
I at least have expressed my feelings on it at the grassroots level.
Do you think those of you who hold this view have any chance whatsoever of significantly influencing the party?
On the whole, yes.
Well, Mr. Laddie said he was trying to send a message to the Supreme Court. Is that the purpose of this?
Certainly.
And what would that message say?
that they were wrong back in 1973.
Mainstream politicians fear that the single-minded tenacity of the Right to Life movement will dominate Minnesota politics all year. After the caucus broke up late in the evening, I talked with Corinne Horble, a National Democratic Committeewoman from Minnesota and one of the state's most influential women.
We are seeing where a candidate running for a school board, running for the legislature, running for county commissioner, running for the library board, every single office that they run for are a question on this issue. And their candidacy is determined, their endorsement is determined on abortion. Now you tell me, what does abortion have to do with the library board? What does abortion have to do with the school board election? And this is what I'm saying, it's starting to dominate over every political office in this state. This issue is a religious issue, and I think we must all remember that.
Religious?
A religious issue. We have the Minnesota Concern for Life organization in this state, and they use as their network the religious communities, mainly the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not talking that all Catholics believe in anti-abortion, but the Catholic hierarchy gives sermons, they hand out political information within the church, and they in turn then take their religious belief and would like it into civil law.
Why do you think it means so much to these people?
Well, I think, you know, if we watch at the precinct caucus tonight, they see it as their moral obligation and their religious obligation. They consider it murder, and that's very strong, their emotion. And they don't seem to understand that this is a pluralistic society, and we have many religious groups who believe in freedom of choice on this issue, and that there is no one single religious point of view on this issue.
Were you raised a Catholic?
My family is Catholic, and in the very beginning I was Catholic. I am now Methodist.
Oh, that's a long journey for you, isn't it? From Catholicism to Methodism, and from a home in which I'm sure abortion was not permissible to your present position.
I don't imagine that we talked about abortion too much when I as a young woman. I have 2 adopted children. And so personally, you know, I don't have much stake in this issue. I do see it as a church-state issue. I see it one of people making a decision in their own conscience, freedom of conscience, and I feel that's the way the issue should be approached.
You must know many of the people who opposed you here tonight. They're your neighbors. Would you describe them to me? How do they strike you?
Well, I find them quite rigid in their philosophy. For instance, in not supporting family planning, I think is quite hypocritical. I feel that if they are against abortion, then they should be for all kinds of ways to try to eliminate abortion. They tend to be against sex education. They tend to be very rigid on talking about freely about sexuality. No one is for abortion. I just feel that we live in a real world and we must deal with real problems, and that we can't go back and eliminate abortion, because even when abortion was not legal, we still had abortion.
That's the way it was in 1955, when Corinne Horble graduated from high school. Any talk about abortion then was in whispers. If it was news, the school newspaper never touched the story. Corinne was a reporter on the school newspaper. So was her classmate, Darla St. Martin. Now, on the issue of abortion, they're adversaries. Darla St. Martin is national director of the largest and most powerful state organization in the anti-abortion movement, the Minnesota Citizens Concern for Life. Her goal, whether lobbying congressmen or state legislators, is to remind the politicians that for people like her, abortion is the only issue.
The state legislatures across the country have been much more pro-life, too. They have passed a number of memorializations asking for a human life amendment.
The government has a very important responsibility to protect the lives of other people, to protect the weak and more helpless members of the society from exploitation of other people, of people who are stronger. Otherwise, you resort to the law of the jungle.
Do you see politics and the political process as the way to work out your moral interests in our society?
Well, I'd like to talk to you further about this idea of this being only an moral question. I think it's a human rights question. And I do see politics as being the key. I think if a person in our society is concerned about something, I think that they should actively work for it. And the way to change society is to get involved in the political system.
Last Sunday, your newsletter, the Citizen Action News of the Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life.
That's right. I was one of the people who helped write that.
Was tucked inside church bulletins and distributed to worshipers at the Mass throughout the city. What are you trying to do?
It was also, I was one of the people who got the idea of distributing it not only to church groups and not only to Catholic church groups. It was distributed at Baptist churches and churches of a number of other denominations, to senior citizens groups. We ourselves mailed out many of these. We were distributing them everywhere where we thought we would find pro-life people who would be interested in this.
You're aware, I'm sure, that your critics say that by working with the churches, and in particular the Roman Catholic Church, you're moving beyond the principle of separation in church and state.
It's a technique designed to make the Catholic people, who do compose almost half of the pro-lifers in the United States, defensive about supporting their view defending human rights. If they can make Catholics defensive, if they can make Catholics no longer participate in the political system, make them feel that somehow they're second-class citizens that don't have a right to defend their fellow human beings, they will have succeeded. I think if the manufacturers can lobby, if labor can lobby, who better than various churches can lobby to defend the rights of the weak and helpless in our society?
People on the other side wouldn't argue that Catholics are second-class citizens or shouldn't state their views on moral issues. What they argue is that MCCL won't take a stand on other issues, such as family planning, because so many Catholics are supporting your efforts.
Well, we don't take a stand on, well, of course you know that I'm a Protestant myself. And a number of our members are Protestants, and that's not the reason that we're not becoming involved in that issue. We're not becoming involved in any number of other issues. You can't really be effective politically or educationally or any other way unless you zero in on a particular thing that you feel is of key importance in this time and this place.
What happens if you lose this political fight?
This is the kind of an issue one can work at for a lifetime.
In recent months, the politics of abortion has grown ugly. Passionate feelings stir extremists in Minnesota.
The heat from the fire was so intense that the steel beams which support the upper structure of the building actually melted. The entire floor had to be demolished and then rebuilt. The fire and then the resulting smoke, water, and the intense heat resulted in the destruction of over $30,000 worth of medical supplies, which were stored 2 floors below the fire. The fire also made it impossible for us to use the facility in its totality for 6 months. We have all the earmarkings of a crusade around this particular facility. We have banners. The rosary is said twice each Saturday in front of this building. Crosses are carried. The campaign has been marked by violence, not only the arson, but the attempted arson in February of this year, when a bomb was discovered at the rear of this facility.
But you don't have any evidence that the people, the women carrying those pickets outside, counting their rosaries, saying their prayers, are responsible for the bombing.
We have no evidence that any party or parties are actually responsible for the arson or the bombing. We do believe that the prolonged controversy, the engineered controversy around this particular facility, has created an emotional climate full of animosity, hatred, religious zeal, that is responsible for the unstable people who choose to act out a personal conviction in extremely violent ways. We have an atmosphere here where violence, harassment, threats of homicide are not merely condemned as they should be, but in fact are tolerated. Planned Parenthood's fair game.
Do you think that what's happening here in Minnesota has any serious national implications?
Absolutely. We're seeing a group of individuals, large groups of individuals, make candidates commit themselves on the single issue of abortion. It is a bloodbath test on which candidates must evaluate their future political careers. The anti-abortion movement is composed largely of people who really don't care about candidates' positions on the Panama Canal, education, housing, busing. Don't even ask the questions. The question is, what's your position on abortion? And candidates' political careers can be made or broken, at least in this state, based on the answer to that question. In Minnesota, we are an unusual state in that we have 2 appointed United States senators, we have an appointed governor and an appointed lieutenant governor. We now have any number of state senators and state representatives who have aspirations for higher office. They're counting the votes in November. They're counting them now. They're counting them on the issue of abortion.
But don't we all have the right to press our moral view on politicians?
Oh, do we? I wonder. I find great potential danger when you attempt to convince your legislator to vote my moral behavior legal or illegal. And it occurs to me that when the Congress last tried to legislate morality in the 1920s, you recall it was immoral to drink. The Congress couldn't do that. The laws could not stick. I don't believe elected officials should attempt to legislate morality. That's your business, your morality for you.
When I say the politics of abortion, what comes in your mind?
Politics of intimidation.
And if someone tries to come through like that, you know, give, but don't go pushing back.
Right-to-lifers who are seeking to reverse the Supreme Court's 1973 decision and outlaw abortion say they neither espouse violence nor sanction extremism. The Catholic Church has condemned such acts.
Jeannie is now an abortion clinic member of the abortion clinic personnel, okay? And she's doing something which has happened in the past.
What's your hang-up here anyway? Protecting human life. Now, you have no right to be here. Will you let me through? Yes, we do. Right of common law. We're protecting human life. Protecting the
I don't know who you think you're protecting, but this is my place of business, and I have a right to be back there. Now get out of my way.
These opponents of abortion are in a strategy session that borrows from the pages of civil rights demonstrations and anti-war protests of the 60s. They're turning to nonviolent, direct action.
All right, can we all kind of...
Rockville, Maryland, 2 days before Christmas. A well-organized anti-abortion group gathers for action. Their target, a clinic 2 miles away which provides abortions for women in the first 3 months of pregnancy. Their objective, to enter and occupy the clinic before scheduled abortions begin. Block the procedure rooms. Keep the pregnant women from entering.
will be the organizer inside, so listen for directions from him. Let the counselors do their work and help out if you can.
The leader of the group is a freshman from Yale University named Jean Miller. When the caravan of cars reaches the shopping center where the clinic is located, the demonstrators assemble in the parking lot and then move quickly and with surprise through a rear entrance.
Okay, let's go. You two first.
Go.
Back
off.
Back off.
Hold still.
Back off.
Hold still.
Back off.
Hold still.
Okay, no pushing, no pushing. Nobody push.
Get out.
All right, nobody push.
Everybody
Okay.
sit down. Sit down.
Nobody push. Just sit down, everybody. Sit down. That's it.
Okay.
Move
Stay
it.
seated.
Just stay seated.
Just stay seated.
Move it.
Stay seated.
Move it.
Let the guy
This
do what
is
he
private
wants.
property. Move out.
All
You hear me?
right, if he pushes you,
Move out.
just stand there, okay? Don't let them push you, though. Just stand there. Go ahead, sit down. Sit down. Just sit down.
Sit down right there. Sit down, Bruce.
Just sit down.
Sit down,
That's it.
Bruce.
Just,
Sit
Bruce,
down,
just sit
sit
down.
down.
Just sit down. Don't let them hit you or punch you. Just sit down.
You're saying
Is
give life
All we are saying is give life a chance. All we are
The man in the glasses is a doctor at the clinic. Moments after the demonstration began, a young woman in a dark green ski jacket arrives for an abortion.
Why? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of her seeing? This simply has a phone number that if she wants to hear some other facts, if she wants
some other facts. No, I don't want to hear some other facts.
If she'd want to hear that.
Oh, yes, I'm telling you.
Excuse me. Come on. Come on, dear.
What are you afraid of, doctor? Or sir, that you don't want her to hear? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
Kill your baby.
You all right, dear?
Okay, just stand, come on. All right.
You're kind of smart, aren't you?
Just stand where we are, Liz.
You stay right there.
Come on, okay, just stay where you are.
You're
Just stay where you are.
trespassing now.
I wish you all.
What are you doing?
You're trespassing.
I'm not trespassing. You're saying.
There are worse crimes, sir.
Come on out here and help you.
Amy, just sit down. Just sit down, Amy. Just sit down, Amy. Just sit down.
Don't let him hurt you. You are trespassing. Would you please leave? You are trespassing. Would you please?
It is 20 minutes at least before the police come. They have been here before. In 1974, the first organized confrontation of this kind took place in this Rockville clinic.
This is not the place to change the law. It's got to be done.
We're not
court.
trying to change the law here
Well,
now. Right here and now, we're just trying to save those few lives that are in there. And
Well,
those,
right now-
and
But you're
those
not
girls
welcome.
Who are,
You're not welcome.
you're giving us a choice, but what about them? Why don't you want to give them a choice?
There's no law that says that
But
I can do anything
says
to
that they have a choice. Is that what it is?
There's no law that says that I can do anything to these people. If the law comes into being that I can do, I will. Right now, there's a law that says you cannot do this. Disobeying the law.
No.
Yes, you are.
That's what I don't believe I am because
Well, you'll
it's
believe it
my doctor.
when you're going to the station. You know, I have no other
Being
recourse.
arrested and being convicted of different things, I'm sure.
Okay.
She's putting about 10 police cars up here. They could be out helping somebody else, too, you know?
No, you officers can all leave and we'll be perfectly happy.
What purpose does it serve you being arrested? You're going to
The
get some
purpose here is-
publicity, right?
Well, if I fall over and break my leg, you're liable for a heck of a civil suit, I'll tell you that.
5 people are arrested, booked for trespassing, released on bail. It's not an isolated incident in the politics of abortion. 2 weeks later, as the working day begins, 10 people storm an abortion clinic in suburban Baltimore. All are arrested and charged with trespassing. The same day, 7 are arrested while harassing a clinic in Fairfax, Virginia. 5 more in Omaha, Nebraska. 7 in New York City. 4 in Anchorage, Alaska, where 3 women and 1 man chained themselves to operating tables and challenged the police to arrest them. Picket, protest, sit in, demonstrate, organize, lobby. All these strategies have worked to put abortion advocates on the defensive. Supporters of a woman's freedom to choose, pro-abortionists, have been complacent since the Supreme Court legalized abortions, and they know it. Now they're organizing to fight back. This is the annual meeting of the National Abortion Rights Action League, a pep rally of a sort, complete with buttons and bumper stickers. The message is loud and clear. The decision of the Supreme Court is under attack and may well be reversed if abortion advocates fail to act.
You have got to speak out at the next cocktail party, at the next coffee clutch, in your next class at school, wherever it is that you can possibly say that you have had an abortion. That is one of the most critical things that you can do on a regular basis.
It's time to start being emotional. It's time to start getting angry. It's time to start putting the members' feet to the fire on this issue and to do it in an aggressive way and to do it in an upfront way.
What you want to do in terms of your particular representative or senator is to find out where that person is really coming from. Is it a whole question of religion here? Is it a question of economics? Is it a question of just pure lack of information or pure misinformation that they have?
Okay, let's talk about religion. I subdivided the representatives into the groups Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, Episcopalian, Jewish, Catholic. Not surprisingly, and these are the raw figures, 73% of the Catholics in Congress voted with the Hyde Amendment in June. Now again, you have to ask the question, was religion important? And I think the answer is it was important. Religion is the second most important predictor of a member's voting behavior.
You'll find that members basically fall into three categories: the good guys, the really bad guys, and then these people that are in the middle that are really political. And they don't really have too many druthers about the issue, except they want to do that which appears to be the safest to them.
At the very bottom line, you're talking about dollars and cents. And if we don't make the kind of a commitment in some form that is going to make us more visible, then we're never going to get anywhere.
The longer we go through this disguised business, the more it's compared to, again, an underground, underworld, quasi-legal event in a woman's life. She has to be disguised. It's like, it's like hitmen who appear on television to talk about how they used to work for the mafia with masks over their faces because they can't be identified. This is not what abortion is about. Abortion is about normal, everyday women from every class, from every walk of life, in every set of circumstances, having unwanted pregnancies and deciding that they don't wish to bear children.
The issue then is joined. For these women, it is a moral issue, a question of individual conscience. The Supreme Court has upheld their freedom to end an unwanted pregnancy if they choose to do so. That freedom is in peril if their opponents succeed in overturning the Supreme Court. For the opponents of abortion, it is also a moral issue. The claim of life in the womb, they say, is the greater claim, and society, through its laws, must uphold it. For these women, it is a moral issue, a question of individual conscience. The Supreme Court has upheld their freedom to end an unwanted pregnancy if they choose to do so. That freedom is in peril if their opponents succeed in overturning the Supreme Court. For the opponents of abortion, it is also a moral issue. The claim of life in the womb, they say, is the greater claim, and society, through its laws, must uphold it. Two moral claims, separated by personal, religious, legal, and scientific interpretations, left to the political arena. No wonder the politics of abortion has become the politics of division. The religious community of America has been deeply split by the politics of abortion. This is the House of Hope Presbyterian Church in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Its pastor, Calvin Didier, is national president of the Organization of Americans for the Separation of Church and State.
The agitation for anti-abortion legislation has to be laid at the door of a certain portion of the Catholic Church. And I just shake my head and wonder, will we never grow up as a country? Will we never quit, for ever so sincere reasons, trying to force people into our religious molds? I have no objection to the Catholic point of view. I have nothing but honor for those who hold ever so sincerely their positions on abortion, on the dissemination of contraceptive information, all those kinds of things. I honor their right to choose. I do not honor anyone's right to choose for me or you or someone else as an imposition.
But in a democratic society, don't we all have the right to press our moral views on others?
No.
Not to argue for our moral position.
No, I think that we do not have the right to impose and impress those on others. The history of the race has indicated so many different religious positions that are sincerely and genuinely held that we couldn't even agree on a definition of what is a moral issue. I just think it's disaster when we have religions impose their positions on the state.
In a democratic society, don't all of us have the right to lobby, cajole, try to persuade other people to our particular viewpoint of the world?
But when a church as an organization adopts a platform and has a political position which it tries to oppose upon political structures, then I think we run into the grave danger of some sort of a 20th century, 30 years war.
I think every church has a right to use its political muscle and its political expertise to try to persuade the rest of the society to adopt the views that they find consonant with their faith belief and consonant with the political philosophy of the country itself.
Monsignor James McHugh, Director of Pro-Life Activities for the National Conference of Catholic Bishops. Between January 1976 and March 1977, Catholic dioceses around the country contributed nearly $500,000 to lobbying efforts by the Catholic Church aimed at reversing the Supreme Court decision.
We frankly feel that we've been maligned very often in the public discussion of this question. But nonetheless, we will not back down. We feel we must go ahead because it is a very serious matter of human rights, and we would be negligent, and history would judge us as so, were we to back off from it.
Father, this is the full text of the pastoral plan for pro-life activities unanimously adopted by Catholic bishops 2 years ago. It's long, but I'd like to read just a few things that it calls for. It calls, for example, for the establishment in congressional districts around the country of pro-life efforts whose task will be essentially political. It calls for conducting a continuing public information effort to persuade all elected officials and potential candidates that abortion must be legally restricted. It calls on residents to work for a constitutional amendment that's necessary, it says, as a first step toward legally restricting abortion. It calls for convincing all elected officials and potential candidates that the abortion issue will not go away, and for scrutinizing their position on this issue. It calls for electing members of your own group or active sympathizers to specific posts in all local party organizations. It goes on this way, outlining a very specific and detailed political blueprint.
We encourage those things happening, but we do not consider that those are uniquely the role of the church. The church stops in the public policy area with pronouncements, with encouragement, with clarifying issues, with perhaps even testifying before Congress. But we do not think that the church or her agencies should be involved in this congressional district activity, in this election of candidates, in this endorsement of one candidate over another. We enumerated those things because those are the kinds of activity that we feel citizens themselves should engage in. And we were certainly trying to encourage our Catholic citizens to work into the political order.
Here is the newsletter for the Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life, the pro-life group in Minnesota. On Sunday, last Sunday, this brochure was tucked inside the bulletin of churches in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and circulated to worshipers at Mass. You don't see that as a collaboration of the close kind?
Oh, I think it probably represents some kind of collaboration. I frankly would not encourage that kind of thing. I don't think that the Minnesota Citizens newsletter should be distributed in the churches. And to the degree that we have any persuasive power with our own pastors and parishes, we advise against something like that.
Isn't the church working through the Right to Life committees with financial support and political guidelines to help achieve an overt political end in another name?
No. As far as the political activity in regard to the laws, in regard to Congress and state legislatures, the church is speaking very carefully and very publicly and very openly as to what we believe the laws should be, or which types of laws enjoy priority over other types of laws. And we should do that. There should be no question. We feel that we should do that.
But the court is the last arbiter in our society. It is where these seemingly irresolute conflicts get resolved.
The court is the arbiter of constitutional issues. And the Congress and the people of the United States are the final arbiter because they can always change the Constitution. And that's what we're really talking about.
Changing the Constitution.
Changing the Constitution. If the view of the court, which we do not agree with, is in fact the view of the founders, then it's time to change the Constitution, because the founders, we believe, had a different view which allows for protection for unborn human life. Now, with the new information that we have, with the new sensitivity to protecting the rights of every single minority, it is time to adjust, if you will, fine-tune the Constitution so that it can give its protections for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness to everyone, unborn children as well as those already born.
I don't know how you legislate to say that people, in fact, aren't going to appropriate children. I don't know how you do that.
Joe Biden, senator from Delaware, facing off with some of the people who will decide whether he keeps that job next November. Biden is a Catholic. Personally, he opposes abortion, and that made his constituents in this room very happy. But he will not support their efforts for a constitutional amendment to reverse the Supreme Court decision. That makes them very unhappy, and they came to Washington to tell him so.
My very honored Senator Biden, why is it, Senator, that the fetus is not given the respect that a person who is being tried in the law courts is given and is not condemned until he or she is proven guilty?
The reason why, Father, there is a distinction made is because there is not a determination the fetus is a person. The people out there who support abortion or think it under certain circumstances should occur aren't fire-breathing haters. There's very good, moral men and women who believe from the depth of their being they're right. Now, there's some who weren't. The butcher and the bitch of Buchenwald, they were clearly people who were out of that category. But there's good men and women. People who put their lives on the line, people who put their fortunes on the line, and people who put their everyday work on the line. And so, quite frankly, I'm a little offended when people say, well, I agree with you, Joe, and we're right, and the other people are wrong, they're immoral, they're not Christian, they're not good. That's just not true. I do believe there is room for difference of opinion, even though I fundamentally hold the same view. From my personal actions, I am not going to vote to impose that upon all of America. That's the conclusion I made. That's where I am. And as somebody else once said, who I won't quote, here I stand.
Politicians like Joe Biden are caught in the middle of the abortion fight in Washington. It's hot in that kitchen and getting hotter. But you have to leave the Capitol to realize that someone else is also caught in the middle of this drama, and in a more excruciating way. You have to come to places like Naples, Florida. Under fire from anti-abortion groups, Florida has joined 34 other states to restrict the government funding of abortion. There are literally thousands of poor women in Florida and around the country who want abortions and can't afford them. Like this 20-year-old mother on welfare who qualified for Medicaid, was pregnant, sought an abortion, and was refused. In the house of a friend, she talked with producer Andy Lack about the dilemma of being unable to terminate a pregnancy she didn't want.
They checked with some abortion clinics, and they wanted anywhere from ranging from $175 to $130 cash. I could get up the money, you know, one way or the other. I could borrow it from someone. I know a lot of people in town that would loan me $100 because I asked them. I mean, I'd play a lot of hell paying it back, but at the same time, I could get it if I had to. But the main point of that is that where I can, a lot of other women can't. There's a lot of women in small migrant town, like Immokalee, that their husbands won't even let them take birth control pills. They couldn't get $100. They had to. They can't even get a place to live most of the time. That's why they go out in the fields and work. They wouldn't have the intelligence to go to Planned Parenthood unless somebody put a post up there and says, we can help you. They don't even know. So if they get pregnant, they go down to a midwife and says, hey, you know, I can't have this baby. I've already got 4 kids. I'm 22 years old. And they get an abortion that way. A coat hanger job, whatever you want to call it. Butcher job. And some of them make and some of them don't.
Delicate question. Would you have considered that choice?
I would have considered it, yes. Honestly, I would. If I had no other means. I can usually find another means of survival, but if I had no other means, I would. It becomes another matter of survival. Everyone has to survive. And the harder situation you're put in, the harder you have to fight back.
Did you think about any of that before you got pregnant?
Yeah, but I wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant that easy. I have, my fallopian tubes have scar tissue in them, and it's supposed to be 1 out of 1,000 chances that I would even get pregnant to start with. So it wasn't really a reality that I would get pregnant. Because I mean, when you talk about when I wanted a child, they say, well, you know, hey, you might as well hang it up really, because there's not much chance you're gonna have one, ever. I played a gamble. I lost.
You regret it?
I do. I wish I hadn't got pregnant, then I wouldn't have to go through the emotional trauma of having an abortion. But there's a lot of things I wish that I hadn't done. But once you've done them, there's only, you know, go the best you can. Fight with what you got.
And on this issue, you're not willing, and you will never be willing, to leave the choice concerning an abortion to the individual conscience of the woman who doesn't agree with you.
No, we will not be willing to leave it to individual choice because that is virtual abandonment of a whole class of human beings, unborn children. We feel that we must speak in their behalf. We feel it's a moral responsibility that the church has at this time and in this situation of human history to speak out in behalf of a defenseless minority when everybody else tends to push them aside on the grounds of either compromise situations or leaving it up to individual choice. We cannot go that route. We will not go that route.
Who will speak for the women who disagree with that view?
They will probably find people who speak for them, and we will speak for them. We will speak for the concerns of women.
Yes, good morning. This is Thea Barron from the National Right to Life Committee. Is the congressman in?
Hi, this is Carol Werner with the National Abortion Rights Action League.
This is Betsy Stengel. I'm with the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights.
The language is unacceptable to us. I'm sure he'll recognize that when he reads it. And could you tell him that we would appreciate once again his leadership on the floor?
I'm just not sure what's going to happen, but I would think that, I'm sure that there's going to be a fight.
The next round in the fight over abortion will take place here in the halls of Congress, with efforts this summer to attach anti-abortion legislation to a defense spending bill. It would prevent some 10,000 women in the military from having abortions at government expense. As the fight grows, the lobbying that goes on beneath these columns, the pressure that is placed on the senators and congressmen who walk through these halls will be incredible. Compromise is the name of the game here. And on this issue, there seems to be no quarter, no margin for give and take. The debate over abortion has in fact become what the founders of this republic fervently hoped American politics would never be. It has become a religious and theological showdown. The politicians expected to resolve questions that for centuries have divided the great scholars, scientists, theologians, and philosophers. The opponents of abortion are asking, they're demanding, that a secular and pluralistic society fix into law a certain moral opinion not shared by the community as a whole. The Supreme Court said that's a coercion forbidden by the Constitution. But the members of the court don't have to run for re-election. The members of Congress do. Against the moral and religious passions that have invaded this issue, they are vulnerable. So is the 200-year-old tradition of tolerance, which recognizes that in a society of conflicting religious convictions, the state, through its politicians, should not choose between them. For CBS Reports, I'm Bill Moyers.